how a person has to break the klipa, break the negative energy that is absorbed into somebody, and that's done by having humility and realizing that we have a klipa. Now, the klipa attached very much to the nefesh ba'amit, to the animalistic soul, and that's that we have to break that connection. Which soul are we connected to more, the nefesh elokit, the godly soul, or the animalistic soul? Which do you identify more with? Do you identify more with your spirituality, or you identify more with your physicality? Are you more drawn to learn, or are you more drawn to eat and to sleep and to physical desires? So the tzaddikim, they're more drawn to their spirituality, as the Gemara says. Hillel Zaken, when he used to tell his students that he's going to go eat, he used to say, he says, I'm going to go do kindness with the poor, miserable creature, which means he's referring to his body. Because was considered like a stranger to him, meaning to say the tzaddikim are at such a high level, they identify with their soul, and therefore when they have their body, they're like, oh, okay, so I have to take care of my body, like something that's foreign to him. It's like, I don't identify with that. Okay, so my body's hungry, so I'll feed it. But it's like I remember when little kids, you try to teach them to go to the bathroom. I don't want to go to the bathroom. It's boring. I don't like it. Like they give all these excuses. So they don't identify with going to the bathroom. That's like, I don't want to do that. Same thing with Hillel. Hillel was like, when he was coming to eat, it was like, I don't want to do that. That's not spiritual. I don't get excited from that. I don't really. Okay, fine. I'll do a chesed. I'll go and feed my body. That's how Hillel used to identify with himself, right? And some people, Chas Hashem, is the opposite. To eat, okay, yeah, let's go. Come on. And then when it comes to shiur, oh, okay, fine. I'll go to shiur. Okay, I'll do a chesed with my soul. You're right. I need to feed my soul. I need to learn Torah. Fine. Okay, I'll go to the shiur. So see, so the tzaddikim is like that, and the Rashayim or Benunim, Chas Hashem, is the opposite. We gotta identify with their soul. And he says, Ki hu atzmo ein rak nefesh elokit b'lvad. And he himself identifies just as a soul, and that's why the Gemara says the tzaddikim, when they die, they're still considered living. Why? Because they were a soul, basically, almost entirely a soul while they're alive. And now after they died, they're a soul in Shamayim. So nothing changed. They're continuing the same way of living. But Rashayim, they're dead while they're alive. How could they be dead while they're alive? He has a pulse. Yeah, but he's not spiritual. He's a body. And when you die, the soul goes and the body stays. He's already like that. His soul is gone. He doesn't identify with his soul. He's only about body. So therefore, it's like he already died. So therefore, a person has to push himself to identify as a soul. It's a very famous question. Everybody always says, so what do you do? Always says, what do you do? So in America, they teach you, oh, I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor, I'm a jeweler, I'm a this, I'm a that. You say, I'm a Eved Hashem. I'm a servant of God. I'm Jewish and then I'm American. I'm Jewish and then I'm an occupancy. If I identify as a soul, and then everything else I have to go. I identify as a jeweler, lawyer, doctor. Oh, so you're identifying as a body. You're identifying as this world thing. I'm a person who's a Torah mitzvot olam haba. In the case of the tzaddik, his body and his flesh are energized and go according to what the godly soul says, as opposed to the Benonim, go and follow according to the animal soul. When you have klipa, you're very connected to your animal soul. And to break the klipa on you, the negative energy, means to connect more to your godly soul, right? And therefore, a person has to use the humility and get rid of his ego in order to be able to connect to his godly soul. And he says, and that's what we were referring to before, that the Rashayim or Chas Hashem, even Benoni, that they identify with their animalistic soul, and Chas Hashem, you could even push away spirituality and push away doing what Hashem asks of you, and it ends up being worse than the animals, because the animals, they do what Hashem wants them to do. They have instinct and they're programmed a certain way, more or less. They have a nature that they follow. But us, we have the ability even to fall under that by going against what Hashem wants us to do and do what we want to do in our desires. And therefore, a person has to be very careful. And that person, the tzaddik, always reminds himself, Anochi tolad velo ish. I am a worm and not a man. Right? My deeds can be even worse than a worm. A worm does the will of Hashem. I'm like a worm. I'm like a nothing. We're lower than all other animals. That's what the Gaon Vilna used to say. Person eats. Person goes to the bathroom. He has to look. I'm doing like maaseh be'ema. I'm like doing like animal. Like a person can say like, wow, look how great this king, great this officer, great this person. He's like a god. He's like, wow, he's so powerful. He's so great. And then you see him eat, right? Or he goes to the bathroom. How did they catch Paro? Moshe went to Paro when he was doing what? When he was going to the bathroom. He said, oh, you're not so holy. You're not this big thing. That you're like an animal. You're like all of us. You're like a regular person. What are you talking about? So therefore, from these things, you have to remind yourself that don't think of yourself as so high. Don't think of yourself as so much. You have to realize that you also have desires and you have to work on them. And therefore, you could be even lower than an animal, which doesn't give in to their desires. They just follow their instinct that God told them to follow. Therefore, he says, "Befrat sheitzkor tumat nafsho v'chatat neorim." Of course, a person has to remember the sins of his past when he was younger. All right, a lot of times people become very holy and very religious, and they sort of look down at others. Oh, yeah, you're a Baal Teshuvah. Oh, you just recently started keeping Shabbat. What do you know, right? But he himself was also there. He himself also was, when he was younger, was doing the wrong things. So therefore, a person has to know there's a lot of damage that you have to fix with all those sins that you did when you're younger. And also, and who says you did Teshuvah? 100%. Maybe you still didn't do Teshuvah for a lot of those things. And that's another place that you can gain yourself humility from. As Rambam says about Teshuvah, he always reminds himself of his sins, and therefore he never thinks of himself as better than anybody. If you read in Geret Ramban, the letter of the Ramban, Nachmanides, he writes that when you speak to someone, you should always speak to him with a lot of kavod, because maybe he's wealthier than you, maybe he knows more than you, and maybe he did less sins than you, maybe he's holier than you. You don't know. Well, you know what sins you did, or you don't know what sins he did. You don't know. Maybe he's holier, maybe he's better than you, maybe his soul is greater than yours. So therefore, there's many reasons why you should speak to him with kavod. Ve'ikar tshuva belev, ve'elev yesh b'chinot b'madragot rapot, hakol fi ma she'oda la'adam hu adam k'yadua le'yodim. There's many different levels and many different levels at teshuvah and many different closeness to Hashem through teshuvah. Therefore, every person needs to work on it. Lechen achshav b'shah zo shu ro'eh atzmo. And now when you see yourself that you're spiritually desensitized, you have this klipa on you, it must be you didn't do teshuvah properly, and your prior sins is what's causing you to do this klipa, and you have to do teshuvah and pay attention to that. A lot of times, and we'll end with this. There's a famous story with one of the Geonim. He visited one town, and they didn't know who he was, so they just thought he's some rabbi, so they hosted him. And then afterwards, after Shabbat, all the students came. And they were sitting around the Gaon and giving kavod, rabbi teachers, rabbi this, rabbi that. The host was shocked. Wow, I didn't know I have such a big Gaon in my house. He felt so bad, he wanted to kiss his feet. Mechila, mechila, mechila. He said, what are you asking forgiveness for? He says, I didn't treat you right. How did I not treat you right? I didn't know who you were, now I know who you are. I'm sorry. So he said to him, listen, it's okay. And he learned the big musar. He says, now I realize why I have to go and ask Hashem for mechila constantly. The way I know Hashem today, I didn't know 2 days ago, a year ago, 10 years ago. And I feel very bad now that I know Hashem like how I know. How did I not serve him back then? How did I not know him before like this? And I have to do teshuvah for that. So therefore, it says the same thing over here. When a person he thinks he has a klipa, he says, yeah, what do I have to do teshuvah for what? What do I have to do teshuvah for? I'm good, I'm fine. And then he sees constantly he's falling in the klipa, falling in the sins, and he's not doing what he's supposed to be doing. He has to think and remind himself, the way I know Hashem today, and the way I served Hashem before, that needs a lot of teshuvah. I need to be humble. I need to realize I'm not where I'm supposed to be. I have to work harder because I have to make up for all those years. That's why the Gemara says, the one who does teshuvah from love, all his sins become mitzvot. Why? Because he did sins and he feels bad for those sins. And now he says, I got to make it up. I got to come closer to Hashem. So the averot become like a fuel to become too closer to Hashem. So it's like a mitzvah. What's a mitzvah? Mitzvah brings you closer to Hashem. These averot also brought him close to Hashem. So his teshuvah from love becomes a mitzvah. Baruch Olam.